day? Is it a beautiful day?
Yes.
Yes. I have shared with you one of my favorite teachers, Reverend Paul Hasselbeck, starts every radio show that he does on Unity FM or any class he does by saying, "It is a beautiful day in my consciousness." Because it can be bright and sunny, as we will talk about today, but we may not be feeling that sunshine. So before I begin, I just want to do a sound check. I do have a new mic today, so is the sound okay? If you are having any difficulty, okay, good. So Paula says we're good, so we must be good. So I am going to begin. See now, Angie's not here today. She said, you should see how much you use your hands. So now that I don't have a handheld, watch out. Yes. You cannot hear me? Okay. Do you want to?
Maybe the frequency.
I don't know. Can you turn?
Okay, so Tom is working on it.
Joanne can't hear anything.
So much for loving meditation. I love you, Jean.
What'd she say?
Okay. Affectionately.
That's all right, darling. Sit down. We love you.
She's smiling. She's kidding me.
So we allow it all to be. So I'm going to start off this morning from an article that appeared in 2007 in the Tennessee State Gazette. When 92-year-old Pauline Jacoby left Walmart, she never expected the events that would follow her quick shopping trip. Pauline had filled her trunk with the groceries she had just purchased and got into her car. An armed robber also got in. He told her that if she didn't give him all of her money, he was going to shoot her. Pauline told the robber no 3 times. And then she said something that changed everything. She said, "You know, if you kill me, I'll go to heaven, and you'll be stuck here in hell," she said. "God is in this car and is with me everywhere I go." She preached to the robber for nearly 10 minutes. Not knowing if the man would take her life right then and there, she spoke about the goodness of God that was alive right there within him. She talked about how fear and anger can destroy his life, and how through the power of forgiveness, faith, and prayer, he could turn his life around. At that point, Pauline reached into her pocket and she said, "Here, take this." And she gave him the only $10 she had. She said, "Consider this an act of love. But please do not go out and buy whiskey," she told him. And at that point, tears started to roll down the armed robber's face. And he said, "No, I can't take this." And he pleaded with Pauline, trying to give her the money back. And she said, "No, you take it." She says, "But remember, maybe you just needed a little hope today. Maybe you just needed a little bit of compassion today. So now you get to choose when you leave this car what choice you will make." And with that, the armed robber disembarked and left the vehicle. So I saw a picture of Pauline And she was a 92-year-old. She is now 4 years ago deceased. 92 years old, probably about 90 pounds soaking wet. And she was behind the driver's wheel. But what was behind the wheel of her consciousness was divine wisdom, was divine faith, was divine courage, strength, and most importantly, compassion. Transcending our physical stature, transcending the world that is appearing before us. And so the energy of divine intelligence, love, compassion, of her awakenedness, her light, filled that car and was leading the way. Now, we can use that analogy in our lives. Who is in our driver's seat in every moment of our day? Is it our armed robber? Our fear, our worry, our anxiousness? Or is it the wisdom of our soul, our light, our divine essence? You see, I started off by saying this morning what Paul Hasselbeck said. It's a beautiful day in my consciousness. You see, because each and every one of us, if we really drill down to the core of our being, first, of course, we all need our basic needs. Food, shelter, some warmth. But underneath that, we all would like to be seen and heard, to be loved. That is alive in all of us. And most importantly, all of us on a spiritual path, or even, those who don't say they're on a spiritual path, if we really look down into our soul, we all have a desire to live a more happier, a more joyful, more peaceful life. And also within us is the desire to live with meaning and purpose. But what happens sometimes is that we fall asleep. We don't believe, or we are forgetting that life is consciousness. And we are domesticated to believe that I need to look out here. And whatever's going on out here in my world, the circumstances of my life, who is in my life, what they're doing, my job, what is in my checking account, all of that determines my peace, my happiness, my joy. But when we begin to journey within, Jesus taught us to be in this world but not of this world. It doesn't mean that we curse the world, but as we navigate through it, we must tap into our inner power. Because if we do not, we will be like those buoys on the water, being knocked around with every storm that happens. Instead of being here, solid. And so we can be, we talked about last week phases of consciousness. And we talked about, AKA the armed robber. We didn't talk about him last week, but the armed robber, he represents us at a really, really dormant state, right? It is what some of us would call ego consciousness, also known as separation consciousness, physical consciousness, sense consciousness, the consciousness of duality, right, wrong, good, bad. And so, Matthew Kahn, in his book, I introduced last week, in Everything is Here to Help You, talks about our inner conflict. We will not experience peace, joy, love, fulfillment in the world out here unless we have peace within. And so he gave us that acronym of WAR, which represents the inner war that we experience. And the W stands for worry. All the forms of fear and angst that we have in our lives. Our doubts, not believing that we will be provided for, that we are worthy, that we are loved, all of the fears. And so we begin to have our consciousness filled with fear and doubt. And when we are in that fear and doubt, we move into the cycle of anticipating those things to come into reality. Anticipation. Because what we are energized with, we are seeking in our vibration. So we attract ourselves to our greatest fears and we don't even realize it because we think it's all about out there. Now, I'm not saying that people are always acting from their highest state. And I want to make a little distinction here. Because some of you may be thinking, well, isn't anticipation about like expectancy, which is part of our aspect of our power of faith? That what I hold in belief, energized with power in my imagination, I expect to outpicture. But when we look at anticipation, we're asked to, yes, expect goodness to come. How many of you heard this or something better? Yes? So yes, we are to energize our deepest heart's desires, but then we need to let it go. Because if we're holding on to it too tight, we are living for the future, waiting for that to happen, and we are missing the present moment experience. And if we are worrying, we talked about worry, we talked about anticipation, and when we are filled with our fears and we are expecting that to happen, we are living in the future, we are not showing up in our present state, we are not in the highest vibration of our being, we are not allowing the divine wisdom of our soul to take the wheel. So therefore, we begin to not show up. We may get angry, tired, resentful, snarky, jealous. And we show up in our lives like this because this is what we are vibrating in. And when we show up snarky, jealous, and all that, we then are in more regret. We have remorse, the woe of me. I should have, could have, would have. You should have, could have, would have. Has anybody been there?
Oh, yeah.
And so when Pauline in that car was talking about heaven and hell, she was referring in it as a place. So we look at them not as place, but states of consciousness. So hell is when we are in the vibration of that victim, in that dormant state of our awareness. So we want to, anybody ever drive a stick shift? It was the first car I learned how to drive, right? So it's in low gear. We're in low gear in victim state. We need to shift on up. Okay, victor. Victim, victor. Oh, my thoughts create my experience. Vessel. Third gear. I forgot. It's been a while. Is there 4 gears? I'll make them be 4 gears. Right? So then we go to vessel. Oh my gosh. Pauline knew in that moment. She could be fear. Or she could be compassion. I am the vessel. And then we move to where the masters walk. I am. I am that I am. I am the divinity. I am here. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We move into that energy. So we have that ability to move from hell, shifting to heaven, our divine essence, the wisdom of our soul. We allow that. That is our heaven consciousness, right here on earth. We allow that to take the wheel and to lead the way. And in the book, everything is here to help you. Matthew Kahn talks about changing the inner war by accessing our divine wisdom. And he takes those words and he flips them to raw, turning war to raw. So those are respect, acknowledgement and welcome. Respect. That is recognizing that everything in this universe, every person has sacred worth. One of our core values is love. And our statement we say is we embrace all people as expressions of love. Now that's easy on a Sunday morning when we're all showing up in our glory. But then we meet people who challenge us, right? Who are snarky, cranky, and all those things I talked about. And so then we have that choice, like Pauline had. I don't just respect you when you're showing up like I want you to, but she looked past, knowing that the pain and suffering he would have. She didn't see the gun, or she probably saw it, and she saw the armed robber, but decided to go deeper. Knowing that he somewhere was suffering. And so she chose again. Thich Nhat Hanh says that when someone's suffering causes you pain, it is because their suffering is so deep that it is spilling out onto you. And what they need is not your punishment, but your help. Now, I'm not saying you're there to be a punching bag or not to make sure that you are safe in a violent situation, okay? And it didn't come by accident to Pauline, because in the rest of that article, she talked about having a daily devotion to prayer, reading her Bible, getting plugged in every day, so that she had an inner awareness, an inner consciousness established, knowing that she can tap in it. Her faith was strong and steadfast, so she can call it up at that moment. So as we know that we have that power to shift, not to take personally the things that are happening, the disrespect that is coming, the snarkiness or whatever from somebody, we know in that moment we have the power to be the light. And we cannot do that if we are taking it personally, because we are in gear 1 victim mode. Cannot access it there. And we have to choose. We have to be willing. Start doing our deep breathing. So we also must respect our humanity, our own humanity, not just of others, and our own divinity. Sometimes on a spiritual path, we put ourselves, as Matthew Kahn would say, under the spiritual microscope, and we don't realize that the ego is really leading the way. When we get hard on ourselves, oh, I thought I was over this. Oh, I thought I did this. Why is that happening? Why am I acting like this? Oh my God, I forgot all of my spirituality. And he asks us to remember, to respect, have reverence for the cycles of our lives. Just like the birthing pains, when a woman is giving birth, the uncomfortability is preparing, it is readying her, shedding, and delivering new life. Well, those birthing pains we experience, knowing that we shift in and out of gear when we are getting ready to evolve, to expand our consciousness. And as long as we are alive, we will be expanding. So we begin to respect instead of reject the seasons of our life, knowing that being in this world, yes, I want to reach enlightenment, but knowing that I'm going to shift gears in and out. And it is okay. And then we move to acknowledgement. Each one of us loves to be seen and to be heard at the core of our being. How many of you light up? Or you might feel a little uncomfortable when somebody gives you a compliment. Right? It feels good. And it also equally, when that woman acknowledged his pain and suffering, it helped him shift. That acknowledging of that. Last Tuesday, I had my own little moment. I was at 7-Eleven with my son George, and we were standing online, And I saw a woman who went to the line before us. She had this beautiful turquoise dress on. It was breathtaking. And she had her blondish, like, silver long hair. And I just said, wow, you look beautiful. And as I said that, her reaction was, oh, this thing, I just got it for $6 at the thrift shop. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Well, you look beautiful no matter where you got it. So as we're standing online, she's trying to pay. She puts her TD bank card in. Sorry, it's not working. And she's saying, there's money in there. It's not working. It's not working. And with that, everybody in the line, anybody in there? Okay, this lady, what's going on? I gotta get to work. What's going on with this lady? She doesn't have money. And I took a deep breath as it went on. And then another attendant opened the register here. He pulled me over. And I saw this was continuing to go on. And I saw the fluster in her face. And I walked over and I said, let me pay for this for you. And with that, she lit up, and she must have said, God bless you, like 500 times. And in that moment, it wasn't what I was doing, or I wanted to pat myself on the back. It was who I was being in that moment with her. It was a sacred moment, because I had empathy. I know what it's like to have had a time where I didn't have money in my account, or I was worried about it. Anybody else been there? So we have a choice to be victims when people are that, or we can acknowledge, I have empathy, me too. Maybe not today, but me too. And we have that power to transform it. I was high all day, not because of this, because who I was choosing to be. Who I was choosing to be in the driver's seat. And then the last aspect is to welcome. That is the art of allowing. Principle 1 says, there is one power and one presence in the world and in the universe, God the good omnipotent. Goodness in every moment. We may not be able to control the impermanence in our world. When we lose a job, storms happen physically out there in our lives. People get diseases. But in this moment of what is happening right now, I could access the goodness like Pauline. So we allow it all. We allow every feeling to come up, knowing that it is there to teach us. We allow every experience to be, instead of cursing it, resisting it, fighting it, wanting to aggressively destroy it. Because when we are there, we may win the battle, but guess what? We will have the same battle again and again with different people and different experiences. See, when we allow things in our lives, we allow to be the alchemists. We allow the light of our being to transform that pain and suffering into a light. If we stuff it down, we will never go there. We talked about our power of mastery. That is the alchemist. Turning pain and suffering into gold. And not only do I turn it into gold in my life, but it also, like somebody else's suffering, spills over onto others. And so, my friends, when we allow the wisdom of our soul to be in the driver's seat, we allow ourselves to experience heaven right here on earth. So as you go through this week, I ask you, as you move through the day, who's behind the wheel? Not who, what consciousness is behind the wheel, moving beyond our personality self. And I close with a Rumi poem called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if there are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably, respectfully, He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Blessings to you, and have a peaceful, joyful, divine, wisdomful week.